Hey everybody, this is Jechta Place. Today with a new tutorial, and if you get a tutorial from Jechta, it's one of a kind. And this is also a one of a kind tutorial. Um, a little bit like a side note, what I'm showing here in this video is not the only way to do it in Dreams. This is one way to do it in Dreams. So don't take this as the only way to get this done. I really want to make that clear because I already can see like comments or people saying like, "Hey, you can also do this and this and this and that, and if you do that, sure." Also fine, but that's not what my tutorial is about. I really want to do my tutorial of the things how I am approaching certain techniques in Dreams and lighting and stuff like that. If you have other suggestions, please leave a comment below. You're still allowed, of course, if you have like other solutions. But I'm always saying then, why didn't you make a tutorial then if you already have another solution? So, and the reason why I'm making this tutorial, I have not really seen anyone makes a tutorial about lightning. And I have seen a lot of like a few on social media. People were asking, how do we get so the light so like realistic, or how do we get this certain reflection, or how do we get like lighting so beautiful? And people are like sometimes a lot of struggling with getting the right tone in their scene. Often people don't even use lighting; they're just like using the default lighting that Dreams has to offer, just because maybe people don't know about this, or I've already seen like a lot of that on social media happening or asking, and I've seen no one did a proper response to that. Not with a video at least. Maybe people asking or answering them in the chat, in the text or anything. But I think people learning maybe better with showing it instead of like saying it. So in this case, I'm going to teach you how, or not teach you, but I will show you, and maybe also teaching you, how I did my lightning in Dreams. And of course, I am still improving myself along the way. Like if you look at my older content, you will definitely see the difference between then and now with my lightning, because I was still figuring out what you could do with it. But I think I now am at a point that I'm kind of satisfied with the settings that I'm using. To give you a little bit of proper, I'll give you like a few examples before starting with this video. I will make sections in this video, so if you don't want to watch this, you can just like skip ahead. If you do want to watch still, you're awesome. And let's check out the daytime, the day scene that I have made in the Dreams Hidden. It's a small 1 minute trailer, teaser trailer that I made and posted on Twitter or other social media like YouTube and Instagram. So let's take a look. So here the day starts. Or not that starts, but just like it's just daytime. And in this sorry, in this scene, you see like the sun is going through the gap, like bouncing on the barrels, and the light reflects back in the whole area, in the whole where light actually can go if you're having a certain light going inside. So light bounce back in the whole area, even if it's an hidden room. And you also can see the GodRay coming from into the gap. Now that is not really possible in Dreams, but to credit someone who pointed me this out, who learned me that technique, which was very clever, is Afroman for Peace. I really want to credit him for saying this to me, because I really didn't thought of a solution like that, because like ray trace, or sorry, God tracing, God ray, not tracing, God ray is something that is not in Dreams at the moment. Maybe we'll get that in the future updates. So if it's going to be an update sometime in the future and you've seen this video, then this technique you don't really have to know. But I will show it one time, but then we're going to scope into the scene. So we're going into edit mode, and then you can see behind my techniques. So we're going to disable the hover effect so we don't get distracted by all that. So here you see that I don't know why I say ray tracing. And here you see like the GodRay is like going through the gap, and the GodRay is only like I have like a little bit side note because like this only can be done at a certain camera angle and position. Because like if I would now like going around with my camera, you would see that the GodRay doesn't make any sense anymore. So if I'm going like around my camera, like here you could still maybe say like okay, it's still possible. But if I'm doing it like this, then you're like, okay, that's not correct. So, and how I did this is like using here like a text gadgets called GodRay, and what I did with making GodRay is I've used the show text box. So I will zoom in it about so you can see it a little bit better. So if I like, you can see that it's a text box, and these are my settings. I put it on the opacity very low, so if I put it higher, you can see actually what it's made of. You can also see that it's like going into a transparent or like into a fading, like an gradient. And how I did that is by using the next tab, the texture proportion, properties, not proportion, properties. And here you have standard. I used the one texture since that was for me the best outcome. But you can play around with anything else. Like you can use other um, other outcomes as well. Like pick the one that you find the most um, comfortable with, and the texture strength is 50%, the texture scale is 75 in my case, and the fade amount is 68. But you can do like what you want to do. You can even make like dust kind of stuff if you want. But um, that's not for this tutorial. The fade amount, I would say 70. Let's keep it at 70. And of course, I put this to 100%, so let's turn this back into a lower. And the thing is with GodRay is that GodRay is not so clearly be visible in video games or in any kind of like environment. So you have to use the opacity as low as possible, between 1 till 3%. Anything higher than that, it will not look so good anymore. So if I put it in a higher, you will see that this is not very realistic to have a GodRay for, because a GodRay doesn't like show like that. So this is how I did the GodRay part. I really want to show really quickly, um, but that is how I did that part. Now the rest with the sun, you can tell I have here some light in the scene, like normal diffuse lights. I have two in total. I have one here and I have one in the back. Those are basically my bouncing light. So when the sun goes into the scene, into the area, the light will bounce back. Now we don't have Unreal 5 in Dreams, so it's not doing that automatically for us. So we have to fake it basically. So if you're making a scene and if you want to have that light is very important in your scene, in your dreams or in your creation, then make sure that you're going to use diffuse lights, because like diffuse lights you can use as faking the bouncing of the whole area. That's what diffuse lights is mostly used for, or you can use it for a lamp or anything as well. And I think I have a light here in the back, so I have like here one as well, because like we need to pretend that the room goes a little bit further down here. I'm not showing that in the trailer because yeah, I don't need to. So why should I make the room further if we're not going to show it? But the lightning needs to be like look like it's actually like still something over there as well. So that's why I put also light, basically backlighting into the scene. So the it's not backlighting, but like it's the light in the front that also shows us a little bit like, okay, this is like light. Like it gives you the player get the feeling that there is something more in front of this. Even we cannot get there, we're not seeing that in the scene, but giving the player, the viewer, at least the idea that there is still like something more in here. Lightning does that. My settings in this lighting, because like I'm not going to select and see and say like, okay, I put here the lighting by. My setting in my lighting is this is really depends on what kind of um like light you need. In this case, I needed a little bit like sun looking lighting, so I think I used the default one. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I used the default one that Dreams is giving, but you can also change the um, the color of the diffuse light. And if you want to have like a morning kind of like vibe in your creation, like if the sun is not really at its brightest moment, but just like dawn or so you can change that to a little bit to red. So because then like it's I will show that as well later. But yeah, you can tweak with that. So my tweaks are basically just 50%. I think that's also the standard that Dreams is doing. But you can like also, of course, like higher it is, so the room gets more lit up in eventually. Now, be careful with like now I have like very bright in here. Like be careful with using this if you're going for a certain light technique. Like if you want to have a focus point on your creation, my focus point in this creation is the GodRay. It's the part where the light comes through the gap on the barrels. That is my focus point I want to have for my viewers. So it's basically pointless to also have light in the front of my creation because now I'm giving the player the feeling that he'll have to look everywhere else. And of course I want to trigger that, but not in the first place because the dream called hidden. So I need to get that vibe a little bit better with the focus point is the GodRay. So it's pointless for me to have a lot of light in the front of the whole area. Of course you can do that. Like let's say there's maybe here another gap going on outside of the camera view, and that's also having light going on from the sun. Could be happening, but that was not my point of this creation. My point of this creation was that I wanted to have a focus point for the viewer. So I just kept the light at 50%. So my focus point becomes more, as you can see in the foreground, it gets a little bit darker. So it's still enough light. It's still enough to see a little bit what it is, especially in the front. But like the most, the point, like the focus point is the GodRay. That is your focus point. At least for my creation, that is my focus point. So I need to make sure that all the lights, all your point of view is going to direct into that GodRay, and then maybe going to explore what else you're going to see. Like what else is there in this scene going on? But first, I wanted to have the focus point is the GodRay. Okay, but how is there so much light going on in here? You're probably going to ask. Because like you're not going to get this if you're using the normal skybox from Dreams. And I have here one, and here one it's basically only there for the settings and not for the sun itself. But I have here one, and this you will never get like that reflection of the sun because the sun at the moment as we now speaking and I'm now recording a video, the skybox is not that powerful to show that light into your scene. So what I do is, and then we have to go outside of here going into the gap, and you see a little bit GodRay still going further. And here we placed another lamp, and this time We're not using the diffuse lamp, but a spotlight. So our spotlight is basically our sun. And so if you're making like environmental areas and you want to make that the sun is going to hit certain parts, I know that like spotlights can be very heavy eventually in your dream. So don't use this too much and too often. But if you use them subtle here and there, you can make very beautiful looking sceneries with light coming through and everything. So here I made like one spotlight that is pretending to be the sun, and it's directing to the gap. And my settings for the spotlight, and I'll show that as well. As you can see, it's a lot brighter. It's like 803 in this case. I can maybe put it on 800. The last 3% doesn't really matter. But I put it on 800% of the light. So it gets really bright. Also, I think I changed a little bit of the default lighting in Dreams. So it's not like it's yellow, but more like slightly to the orange side, not too much, but slightly. And this is like tweaking your stuff, like how far do you want to go your basically your GodRay light go. This is of course like how much of the area you want to cover with your light. That's your beam angle basically. Like if you have a bigger cap, you can use this. But in my case, I have a smaller cap, so 19 degrees is enough for me. And then we have like a fade angle. This is more like if you want in my uh, if you want to have like a spotlight or a flashlight, you could use. Well, a flashlight doesn't have that high beam as well, by the way. Like a flashlight will be something like this. Like it still have like a soft edges around. I don't know if there's a hard light in real life. Um, I don't know, but I try to think of a situation where that could happen. But mostly light always have a little bit fading around the edges because yeah, sometimes there's an object in front of it, which where light like goes through, and the round object basically fades the light away. But also light itself is not very hard and straight. It always have that soft like fading basically around the lighting. So you have to do that as well for, in this case, the sun. Even though you're not seeing like only the parts of it, so it's only like the moment where it hits the gap in this case, and you can see then that the edge of the light is fading slowly away. That's how like light works basically. Um, and the rest like here you can others put other settings if you want to have like pretend there's like maybe something in front of it. Like, do we want to maybe pretend there is some trees going on? You can use images in the front of the lamp. I use images. It's very useful for situations like if you want to pretend there's an object actually in front of it, but it's a really clever way um, to do this. And try to maybe find a good image that you can use maybe, and then we can use the image blur so that is not so um, um, so hard lined in the shadow. That would be really weird if like the light around it is very soft and then the shadow itself is very hard. That doesn't make any sense. So you have to use blur effect as well. I was thinking before I was going to release this scene to actually use this, um, but it lost my magical focus point because I really want to have that very bright, like the sun. It's like the hottest day at this moment, and there's nothing in between the scene and the sun that's blocking the sun. So I made a point for I made a in my case not using the image at all for this. So I keep it like this because that for me was more powerful to have this scene. But it really depends on your own creation. So don't take this as the only way, like I said. But yeah, just using your own style. So that's how I did my lighting in this scene. That's how I made the reflection basically. And the GodRay, I showed the GodRay as well. But before, and this is a um very important one to have as well, and that is your color scheme. And you're like, color scheme? I'm using my assets. Those have colors. What do you mean with color scheme? That's not color scheme. That is basically your assets that you made or create or use from Dreamverse have, of course, color or using color. But that's not your color scheme. Your color scheme is basically the all-round filter you have in your dreams. And so, for instance, if you're watching a movie, you never will, at least good movies, at least high budget movies, you're not going to see real life color in movies or in shows or anything. They always use a certain filtering, filter to make believe you actually are not looking at real life, because that looks really weird, but always use a certain filter so it looks like more immersive, more that you are into that scene instead of like watching a home-made video. Some movies are made like that, um, like sometimes movies are made are filmed with a handycam. Um, I mean, sure you can do that as well. But then again, it really depends on what kind of like creation you're going for. But in most cases, for movies and also in video games, a lot of video games doing this as well is using color scheme, and picking the right color scheme for your creation is very important. Now, my color scheme is orange. And why did I pick orange? Is because like my whole scene, of course, is with the sun bouncing on this object, on this environment, in this whatever it could be, in temple, or that's something for you to guess. But it's like um, it needs to have a certain color around everything. And I picked in this case a little bit like orange. I think I used a little bit slightly blue to get a little bit like a good like light reflection. So what do you need to do that? What do you need to get something like that? Of course, you need great effects. And I will show you, if you don't know where everything is. If you go to your gadgets into your main menu, if you press at square, then you have here your camera and lighting settings. And here you have, of course, the sun and sky. So this is like your skybox. And next to it, you have the grades and effects. And this one basically gives you, like if I put this in the scene, you see that my scene becomes very bland. If I remove this one, this is like what my scene would look like without any gradients. And that is why I want to say this is maybe the most important part of getting good lighting, because people often think like if I put a spotlight in there, but it still doesn't look okay. It still looks so bland and boring, and the colors are so weird. Um, these are the colors maybe you would see in real life because we don't have filters in our eyes. So maybe this is more like a realistic kind of light, not really, but more to the realistic part, because and that's why we never see televisions like this, because and some televisions doing this, and people are saying like that looks weird, but that is because it looks weird because it's closer to what we see already in real life. So that's why a lot of like companies using, and that's more of a taste matter. Um, but I really want to show you the difference between the normal light with only like um, with only like spotlight and nothing else, right? So this is it. This is what you. If I would not have done the great effects, you would get the scene like this. So you would see something like this. And to be honest, and this is of course like a very manner. This is of course like depends on yourself. Do you like this, or do you like more of like giving that more of like immersive body feeling with the surroundings, like what we have what we did here in, as you can see in the thumbnail. So it's very important for me to give a certain vibe in your scene, and I do that with the great effects. So let me go back and delete that one. So I'll show you a little bit of my settings here. So the great effects, those are basically my color scheme. So I will make everything looks better in the scene. It also needs to make sense in the scene as well. Like in this case, it's bright and sunny, so my color scheme also going in that direction. Now we have in the first tab, we have contrast. And contrast is basically everything what's between white and dark. You're making that stronger or lighter. So I put it on 20%. Now 20% is pretty high already. I don't often do this. I often go between 5% or 10% or 15%. It really depends on the situation. But in this case, I was more happy about the 20%. um, you can also like change the saturation. Also depends on what kind of like game you're going to make, but be careful with saturation. Saturation makes color stronger. So if you have something red in your scene and I'm going to put the saturation higher, everything will be going more red because like it's going to boost up your color. Now, if you want to make like certain like like environmental areas and you want to do something crazy with your settings, play around with it, I would guess. I mean, they are there for a reason. So yeah, play around if you think you're going to need saturation for this. I don't need this. For me, in my case, that's a little bit too much of everything, so I'm not doing it. And here you have also gone the hue cycle, and the hue cycle is basically changing the color arranging. I think this it could be like if you're could be handy if you want more accessibility in your creation. I'm not sure if like you would be the perfect way to do it. I'm not really into that ground at the moment. My upcoming, I maybe want to make a setting for people that have color blindness, but I need to look into um on the internet. I need to do researching on that one because like I don't know if you can solve that with the hue cycle. So don't take me for that to be honest. But this is like you can change like your lightning as well with this. Um, my advice, even though this looks already pretty cool by the way, but like my advice is like don't don't do it like this. If you really want to get like nighttime feeling or more like spooky feeling, please don't use the U because it will touch also the highlight parts, and the highlight parts I mean I can show you like this here. Like if you have like lighter parts in your asset, it also changes that. And believe me, you don't want to. Like you don't want to touch that part. Trust me on that one. So don't use this unless you're going for a very weird game. Then you can do that. But if you want to do more like scenery, I would not suggest to do this. But I will still want to show it. Then we have in the next tab we have the color tinting. Spoiler alert, this is the most important part. Um, the color tinting is basically your color scheme. This right here, those three little circles, is your color scheme of your game. And here you can put the base of your game. If it's like if you want to make a war game, everything maybe needs to be looking a little bit dark and green and blue. Or if you want to go for a horror game, you want to go more for blue tints and everything. So in this section is the most important part for your color scheming. And as you can see, in my case for this scene, I picked like everything is gray in the beginning. Everything is like gray in default. So you will see something like this. And maybe you're not really noticing it, but if I go like go back, you see that the environment changed slightly. And that is because like I've used a very soft yellowish. It's not really yellow. I think it's like more to the orange side. Color scheme to get the overall look better than than before. Um, I would say you also have the highlights part, and here I say like, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch the last one. The reason why don't touch the last one is basically what the U cycle is doing. So if we're going back to this here, and we have here the light parts in this like in my creation, and if I would change this to another color to green. Okay, so, okay, this is not okay. Maybe it's a little bit better to see in here because this is like the highest part in the the lightest part in the game. So here you can see that now like the lightest part, the highlight, is becoming green. And so I would suggest not to touch anything of like highlights at all because like highlights needs to be looks natural as possible, at least in my case. If you're making something else, go nuts with it. I mean, they're there for a reason in Dreams to use. But I'm not touching this at all because I really want to get my lightning as nice as looking possible. So I changed here the shadows. Now you would say, but why would you change the shadows? I'm not changing the actually shadow. I'm changing the color scheme over that shadow. So like if I would like doing hard like weird color, you see that like shadow becomes more blue, especially like in the darker parts. Now, or this is more like purple, by the way. I'm colorblind myself. That's not a joke. But I have like I use this sometimes when you want to create nighttime or and I will show that with another creation that I made. But that's something that I use for that situation. If you want more like a nighttime kind of looking, but then you also need to go for the midtones and it was something to do like this to get more of a nighttime feeling in your creation. Even though now it doesn't really make sense because the sun's still going on. So if you look at this right now, your brain is liking, huh? Why does it look like the scene looks nighttime-ish, but the sun is still there? So in this case, it doesn't really matter to do that setting. But if you're going for like a nighttime vision, yeah, you can definitely do that, and I will show that in the other after this. So that's how I did it. That's how I did nighttime reflection. And I really hope that this is something learnful for you guys. Um, there's one more thing I want to show you to get a perfectly looking clean environment is always put, no matter what, if you're not going to use it or not, but always put sun and a skybox in your game. Always do that. No matter if you're going to use later like spotlights or great and effects gadgets, but always use your sun and skybox into your scene. Never forget this one. Always place the sun and skybox into your dreams. And the reason why, even though I'm not really using this one, but if I remove this one, um, let's go zoom a little bit out so you can see it a little bit better. So if I remove this one, you instantly see there's a lot of smoke going on, and the whole I mean, sure, we can use something like that. I could have go for this direction. Maybe some people in the comments or like seeing this, they're like, "Oh, that's so much cooler." Maybe, but there is a thing that I do not really like in Dreams, and that is this. And because like, even though you can change it like a few here and there, but I do not really like this particular part in Dreams unless I want to go for like a certain technique. But if I want to get smoke or if I want to get fog into my scenery, I rather use the fog gadgets instead of the default lightning in your environment. But I think this, in my case, is better. But for my taste. But of course, like we could have used smoke anyway. I mean, it's a matter of taste, and I can already hear people saying like, "No, it's the other one is way better." But in the sun settings, I have not really changed much except for the second tap here. Like the second tap in the sun sky, I did a few changing. I set up my sky flag type, and I always use between 11 and 12 because that's for me the best looking flag you can have to get a clean sky. Um, like now the sky is not so clean, but I because like I'm not using that settings for this time. But if I'm going for my level or my game, I use always like flag 11 or flag 12. For me personally, that is the best outcome if I want to have like a clean looking sky, like like this, for instance. Then you have like sky brightness. Now here we can say like, do we want to have like a lighter environment, or are we going more for a little bit darker? But that's also weird because the sun goes in, so that doesn't really make sense that also the sky is also dark. So I have to put it on 38 to get the right amount of like blue and um, blue is always looks great in photos because like having something in the foreground with color and blue in the background, that's a very beautiful contrast. Unless you're going for the golden hour situation, that is, I think that's the most beautiful way to make photos. But having blue sky is also very good for making photos. And then I use here the sky intensity. Now you can put this a little bit lower to get a more blue sky if you want that. I can put it to 0 to get it even more. But in my case, I thought 46 was good because like we have to give a little bit of feeling that there is like still over lightning in the whole scene. So the sky, if we look in the sky, we also can see that the sky is already bright up. So I think for me in this case, but play around with this into your own settings. And then you have like horizon definition. Now I'm not really touching this much, unless I go for um, uh, a very typical situation into your creation. You can lower the horizon as you want. I'm not really using this much. I think it's 85 at its standard default. Play around with this if you feel need to. And here we have also the flag shade randomness, but we don't need that because I don't. I want my sky to be look as clean as possible, so we're not going to use randomness. I think it's standard on 20%. So if it's on 20%, move it back to 0% if you want to have a clean looking sky. Now the last one, and this for me is the most important one. I put it on the highest range of the fog range. And why I do this, I have it on 10,000 kilometers, I think it's kilometers or meters. It says M, so it's meters. But like this is basically the range of the default fog range. So if I put it back into the default one, you can see that what I was showing before, that everything looks so in my case, weird because I'm losing a lot of detail in the scene. Um, so this is like oh, your default fog range is like 1 kilometer basically. Um, but I don't want that. So I just like put a random number, a lot, till I have like so I have like 10,000 max. So you get a lot more cleaner environmental situation. And if you want still use fog, you can still use this. You can still use the fog gadget. So if I go for the fog gadget, and if I still want to have what we had before, right? I use this as a solution and go for um let me see. And go for like the fog that's like giving you in the gadgets. And then of course like play around with it till you're happy with the settings. Now this is of course obviously not satisfied. But like here, play around with settings. We need of course the density as low as possible for this. Then I think 1.7. So you can see that we already get that um the same the same kind of fogginess we had before. Only this time, only this time, it's not affecting the rest of the area. So that's why I don't like the default fog range in Dreams. This is why I'm not liking it because it will also affects the light in here and in here because it sees everything that has lighting basically. It will cover up with that fog around it, and I don't like that. So that's why I use mostly fog as an additional situation instead of like a default one. And like you can do like many different things with this. Like I could have do something like this as well to get a little bit more fogginess into the scene and everything like that. I could have choose that. I didn't choose this. I could have gone for that. Maybe I will still do it. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I'm already 42 minutes into this tutorial, so I think I'm going to wrap up this video. Um, I hope you have learned something from how to make a good looking lighting into your scene, in this case daytime. I will make another video after this for daytime effects because that's a little bit different approach. But I really hope that you learned something today, and I can't wait to see your creations using this, maybe this technique, or maybe even better. I don't know. Just go nuts with the settings. But very important, a quick note, after note. Always use skybox into your dreams. That's your sun. That's this one. Your sun sky. Always use that one in your dream. Use spotlight for creating if you're going to make certain areas have to look like very bright. Use spotlights to recreate and fake basically sun lightning. Be careful with using this. Too many would mean lower FPS in your dreams, so very be careful with using lightning. And for the light reflection, you use diffuse light. It's in the same settings. If you're placing the lamp, and if you go into the settings, you can change this to a spotlight or a diffuse light. Now, I really hope in future updates, or if it's possible, that if we get more options with the diffuse light. For now, I don't know. It feels very basic for what we can do. We can only do put the light higher and lower. I kind of want to have a little bit more features and options in the diffuse light as well at some point. But that's more for me and not really for this video. But um, yeah, I really hope that you learned something today. And if you want to know how to make nighttime scenes or like like a little bit darker scenes, or then check out my next video that I will post after this. So yeah, see you then. Bye bye.